Hey guys, welcome to the Fulco. I just wanted to get on and make a very quick video. I've obviously missed the last match doing a bit of a post-match review and got the Wolves match to do a review on, but as I said, I normally like to get home, watch the game back and then put my thoughts down. But there's obviously a lot of talk about Ange's future, so getting a quick video out there on the manager. And as you can hear, one of the reasons I haven't been on has been battling the typical winter bugs that you get, especially if you've got kids. So just looking at the situation after today's Wolves game and, you know, the kind of way the game played out and what it was like for the players that were out there. There's a lot of people obviously at the minute who are questioning Ange. They're questioning his future. Is he the right person to take us forward? Should he be given the January transfer window? Should he be invested in, or do we need to make a change now and, you know, clean break and see if we can bring someone else in? Excuse me. I think there's two ways to look at it. The first way to look at it is the performances this season, the metrics, everything that you want to look at for Tottenham Hotspur in season number 2, when in theory we should see an upshift, are not going in the right direction. I think there's a very, very clear correlation between the injuries and the really, really bad luck that we've had with injuries, even though some of that might be down to the training practices that Ange has in place. And the way he deploys the resources he does have. But I think it's a pretty extreme situation to have that many players out, and you wouldn't expect a team that's fighting on all possible fronts at the moment to be in a particularly successful situation given that is going on. So we'd expect better from season number 2, and at the beginning of the season I think the underlying numbers were all pretty good. Everything was trending in the right direction, but the points on the board, particularly in the Prem, were not what we wanted them to be. So, you know, we were good on our, possession stats, our running stats, our pressing stats, goals scored, which is still pretty good despite letting in a load in our last few games. With high scorers, we actually had one of the better defenses in the league as well. So lots of the underlying numbers were signifying, number one, an improvement from season number 1, but also that we were trending in the right direction. It felt like we were just at that half a turn away from putting it together on a more consistent basis and then being able to say, right, we've taken a genuine step forward here. And it might well have been that was the bedding in of some of the players we signed, or, it would have still taken another transfer window or so to get to that point. Now, unfortunately, we've not been able to do that because we've basically fallen off a cliff. We've got so many injuries and players are playing so many minutes right now and we're not getting results, that everything is now trending in the wrong direction. Really disappointing today to concede that goal, but also more disappointingly was how much Wolves dominated us in the last kind of quarter of the game, which was not pleasant to see. It felt like, well, we were sitting deeper, and I don't know whether that was by design or whether that was, the players simply just did not have the energy to do anything different. But it didn't work. It didn't come out in our favour. We still ended up conceding the goal. So it's, a bit of a flick back to the Conte, times and Mourinho times, where you can sit in and you can be defensive, but if you're still not good enough at that, you're still going to concede goals. Okay, we didn't lose the game today, but we didn't take our chances. And, we found ourselves in a situation where it's 2 points dropped against a team that's very low down in the table, despite them having a new manager bounce. So Ange, the talk about Ange and, get rid of him and bring somebody else in, rightly so. Lots of people mention, well, then we just start the new cycle, right? We start the new rebuild. And the question is, could somebody else come in now in January and do better with what we've currently got than Ange is doing? And I think you could legitimately say that there are managerial appointments who would be available to Tottenham who could come in, stabilise, play a far more pragmatic, to use that term, way, in order to steady, and there could be some kind of immediate bounce. There could be some immediate turnaround. They would hand out more minutes to other players, I would assume, because their system is not so specific, and therefore they'd be able to spread the minutes out without a drop off in performance. And therefore you'd argue that there are people that could come in that could immediately stabilise, maybe have a bit of an uptick. But are those the managers that you want? Are those the managers that are the next phase of Tottenham's evolution? My argument and my personal feeling is that no, they wouldn't be. They would come in, they would potentially stabilise to a certain extent and improve results during an injury crisis. I know a lot of people are saying, well, with the same injuries, they'd have the same problems. They certainly would. They would be coming into, a real kind of crisis situation when it comes to injuries. But I feel that they would do things differently to Ange that would, maybe lead to slightly better outcomes, particularly against lower teams in the Prem. What they would be able to do in the Cups, is impossible to say. You don't know who's coming in, so you've no idea what they'd be able to do. And so to that point, for me personally, I don't think you get rid of Ange. I don't think you get Ange out the door to bring somebody in for stability. I'm not concerned about getting relegated. I don't think it's going to go that way. We are likely to get players coming back to us as the season goes on. Relegation. I mean, the league we were never going to win it this year anyway, but top four is gone. And so we should be, realistically, a successful season for Tottenham this year would be any kind of cup success. So, okay, we're still in 3 cups at this point. Let's go after the cups. That would be okay. And I think Ange is as capable of doing that as anybody else is. Now, you could argue that if the club have done due diligence, then maybe there is somebody out there who is the next step, that the club has identified that this is the person who is the next step. So is there somebody out there who could work within the constraints of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, the way Tottenham spend their money, the way that the board and the hierarchy do things? Is there somebody out there who could perform to a higher level than Ange? I don't know whether they're currently available. I don't know whether the club would be willing to pay money to extricate somebody, like some of the names that are being suggested elsewhere in the Premier League. But there are definitely managers out there who you would argue could do more of a Pochettino role, who could come in and work within the structure and do better than Ange is currently showing he could do. Now, the caveat to that is we've had so many managers over the years who've, at very best, like Pochettino, had a glass ceiling, and at worst have absolutely not been able to work within the current setup and the systems and the way that Tottenham do things. That I think thinking that there is somebody out there who could magically get us over the line is probably false hope, and that is wishful thinking on Tottenham fans' behalf. So my position as it currently stands, and it always has been, is give Postecoglou until the end of season number 2 to make a decision on what we do, mainly because I think the options are much better to you in the summer, right off the league season, go after a cup. If we win a trophy, amazing. It's the most successful season in 20 years. That's great. And then we can, wish him well and move on to the next phase. And there are certainly some managers I'd be very interested in if we were to get to the summer. However, there is a part of me that just wonders whether Ange is the manager we need, because unlike so many others, he is a very, very rare breed who has come in, who has spoken straight but not looked down on the football club. He's been forthright. He's said things that other managers haven't. He's not thrown his toys out the pram. Now, he's not been everybody's cup of tea when he's losing and he's angry and the way he handles himself. But I do wonder whether Postecoglou, without potentially the board knowing this, he is the man that we need, because he's planted his flag in a certain place and he said, I'm not going to move away from it. And everybody's screaming at him, you need to be more pragmatic. You're getting all your players injured. You're not changing your tactics, and it's affecting negatively, and, you know, the club is going down. Whereas at a certain point, an ideologue who believes that strongly in something and who has shown it to be successful makes the football club come to them. And all or lots of success stories in the world of football, you know, you watch a nice documentary back, you know, used to watch them on late night Channel 4, you watch a documentary back and this is the story, right? This is the lead-in. Unsuccessful club, years of, you know, no ambition and not doing anything, and then a guy came in who absolutely refused to bend, and then a few nice stories. But eventually the club shifts to meet that person. And when I'm looking at our transfer policy, which has been heavily criticised recently, I can totally see why. And I can totally agree that you could say that not enough was done in the last transfer window and it's left us short this season. That's being seen. What I would also say is, if you were looking at a layered approach to recruitment, you could certainly make a case for the way it has been being done recently. There's been good Fabio Paratici and Gabbianini signings coming in, good quality in among the squad, more focus on data, and a huge clear out of players that were at the end of a cycle for Tottenham Hotspur. And with all of that, doesn't necessarily leave all the time, and certainly with the way Tottenham spend their money, we weren't going to spend the money in a way we were just going to start slapping 60, 70, 80 million on the first team as we needed. We bought one who was a key position, he was a striker, and there's an argument for investing in youth. Okay, so we've got those coming through for the future, and then over the next couple of windows you start to layer in 1, 2, 3 first teamers a time. And if the manager's also going on the right trajectory, then arguably success lies at the end of that road. It makes sense to me. I can see it, although no one at the club communicates, so it's impossible to know what the strategy is. So there's a possibility that, you know, if there was a gold nugget available in January or two, a bit like Bentancur and Kulusevski were, we could do something good, or we could just go out and spend more money than we want to, and that'll affect us in the future because that's the way the club is run. But we could spend more money than we want to right now because we're desperate and we need players, and we could do that. I don't see it myself, and, you know, there's no evidence of that in the 25 years that ENIC have been in charge that's going to happen, but it could. And you could say that the idea of now layering in first teamers to a fairly solid base of young and decent-ish players could be a way to really take a step forward. The problem being is that Postecoglou is running out of runway. He's not got long left before Levy gets twitchy and has to pull the trigger because the results in the league are so bad. So for now, the Cups feel like the only reason Postecoglou is still in a job. But I do just wonder whether somebody that refuses to back down from where he is, none of his players will ever be able to question what he says. They will never be able to turn around and say, well, you know, you sacrificed your principles when we had all those injuries and you changed this when this happened, etc. They'll never be able to do that. So the players who are on board, and it does sound like the players are still on board with Postecoglou, it doesn't feel like he's lost the dressing room despite what the players are going through. They're still playing for him. You just wonder whether he could be the guy that we need. He could be, if he can get the other side of this, if they just hold the board, just hold their nerve, keep him, don't sack him. Obviously, if we start crashing out of cups, 2 cups in January, I don't think he'll be there much longer. But if he does continue in the cups, they do hold their nerve and they do back him, could he be the guy that actually turns the club and turns the transfer policy to what he needs, because he's unshakable and unflappable in his belief, and actually makes us into a team that can compete. I guess that's the last straw that I'm holding on to. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and come on, Tottenham.